Joining me now today is Adrian Foster, Rabobank's Global Financial Research Head for the Asia-Pac region. Adrian, good to have you with us. What do you make of this move?
The selling of the bonds. I think it's probably really, in a big picture sense, it's just a broadening of the scope of financial, taking market forces right across the finance industry. So in that sense, it's just part of the ongoing financial reform measures. Perhaps it's consistent with moves towards further currency reform in the months ahead, which I think are on the table. And it's consistent with measures to go fighting inflation. But these are, I guess, all the tools of a central bank. So in that sense, China's just catching up, I guess, broadening its...
The tightening measures that you're expecting, how soon and how much of a tightening?
I think the domestic story is calling for a tightening, and I think the interest rates do go higher in the next 3 months, 27 basis points in the one-year lending rate. And I think increasingly also the domestic situation calls, or I guess allows, China to get back to the currency reform process that it had kicked off in 2005. It put on hold in mid-2008 as the global financial crisis unfolded. And I think as financial conditions around the world are normalising, major economies returning to growth, the China recovery story becoming pretty entrenched, I think confidence at the leadership level is building, and that to me, I guess, opens the door on China moving back towards further currency reform.
This currency reform, I mean, how much a move? When we talk to the markets, players say 2.5% appreciation by year-end. That's not much at all.
And unfortunately, that's about my call. So it's tempting to want to come out with a big striking call of 8 or 10 or 12% revaluation, and it would certainly get you a lot of headlines. But I think if we look at the history of Chinese reform measures over the last 10 or 15 years, it's very much been more one of evolution than revolution. Very few major policy changes have come in one hit. They typically trickled into the market or trickled into the economy, and I think that's really the pro forma that we should expect to see this time around as well.
Will that be enough for the US? The US pressurizing China to let its currency go higher? 2.5% surely won't cut it.
It won't cut it for a lot of people in the US. It's probably just enough for the administration to say, well, at least China's delivered something. I think there's a fundamental sort of imbalance here that possibly is lost on some in the US, and that is that China looks at itself as a developing country with an average per capita income of $3,500, I think, across the economy. And of course, the US average income is something like $30,000, give or take. So I don't think China sees itself as an equal partner in this relationship. It doesn't see itself as having to bring as much to the table as the US perhaps thinks it should. And that's why I think that US calls, the more extreme US calls, ultimately will be disappointed.
Earlier you said that China's recovery story is pretty much entrenched, but Nouri Roubini came out to say that, it will face a lot of challenges getting to double-digit growth. Your take on that, do you agree?
A lot of challenges, yeah, I guess, yes. I think it's above 10% at the moment, and I think year-on-year growth in the first quarter stays above 10%, slows thereafter. So when we think about the China story of the last couple of years, we become pretty accustomed to 11, 12% growth, and maybe that's the context that he's speaking in. I think as we look to the outlook, it's more likely to be in that sort of 8.5% to 10.5% range. And I think the leadership, perhaps they'd aim for more, but I think they'll be comfortable with that kind of a rate.
The World Bank, though, not that optimistic, yesterday came out with a report saying that growth is going to be 9.5%. That's not bullish at all.
9.5% for this year, I guess. If it starts at 10.5%, then I guess they see it slowing to 8.5%, give or take, by the end of the year, which actually is a pretty similar outlook to what we have, driven by, we see US economic growth disappointing in the second half. China's growth itself has been heavily driven by stimulus measures, both fiscal policy and the massive boost in bank lending that we saw through last year. Those things lose their efficacy unless they're boosted further, which is very unlikely. And in fact, they're probably retrenched a little bit. So I think that makes sense to me that we should expect slower growth from China. I think our year average, that number's around about right. By year end, it becomes a more interesting story, I guess, when we see growth rates in year-on-year terms of around that 8 to 8.5%.
Are you concerned about inflation in China? China does seem to be aware of the issue. I mean, when you compare to the rest of Asia, China seems to be taking steps.
It's got an underlying inflation issue, I think, predominantly driven by food prices. So there's a question mark there as to whether the central bank sees that as a goal of its own policy, because there's nothing the central bank can do about farming in rural China, of course. So it's a strategic issue for the Chinese leadership to boost food supply, take out the food prices from inflation, and it is in fact rising. It's around about 1% year on year. It was as negative as about -2.5%, I think, only a couple of months ago. So it is rising in the non-food sphere. It's still pretty limited. I think it continues to rise, and it does become an issue. And it's one of the domestic factors, I think, that do push or prompt or suggest to the Chinese leadership that a modest strengthening the yuan is on the table.
Adrian Foster, Rabobank, thank you so much for that.